Good morning, Brad. How are you, buddy?
Good morning, Brian. It's so good to be here, and it looks awesome up there in Birmingham.
Man, it's a nice morning. We've had a little bit of a break from the heat. We're recording this prior to the launch of the season, so a cool morning in August is rare. And so I wanted to come outside in the outdoors for the Storied Outdoors.
Yeah, thanks for rubbing it in. It's not so cool down here in Mobile, Alabama.
I imagine not. August in Mobile is
A lot of humidity.
a lot of humidity. Well, man, we got a lot to talk about today.
So much. It feels like it's been forever. Even though we've recorded a couple of episodes for the upcoming season, it feels like it's been forever since we just kind of talked about the season and looked back at season 2. It was so good. I had so much fun.
Man, season 2 was a blast. It was a little bit longer than season 1. And
I'd be curious to see if folks really enjoyed like more episodes, or do they like the shorter episodes? Maybe some feedback if you're out there and you're listening. We'd love a little feedback on, do you like the longer seasons or not? But we enjoyed it. We had a lot of great guests and some good stories to tell. So
absolutely, yeah, we'd love to hear the feedback on that. We're still trying to navigate this and learn as we go. Being 2 seasons in, we've learned a lot. And so we're still learning, but we'd love to hear your feedback, kind of the pace of it, the routine.
Yeah. Brian, who was a guest that sort of stood out for you, man?
Oh my goodness. We had so many that were every one. I feel like it was just as good as the previous one. One that stood out to me, and probably because we're friends, in real life, it was Milla with Real Happy Dogs. She's they were doing the foster dog, and
just they've had a lot going on in their lives lately.
Yeah. So since we had the conversation, and since she was on air with us, they bought some land, and they are building a foster dog camp. So the acreage that they have, they're building a camp so they can have so they can foster these dogs that are looking to get a home. I mean, this is farmland, and the dogs can run and they play, and it's a safe environment. They did a Kickstarter campaign, and within, I think, 36 hours, they raised the money for this camp. And I mean, just the support that they received is phenomenal. If you haven't checked them out.
Yeah, that'll be like they're putting a big giant fence around this property. Is that right?
They're doing a fence. It looks like they've got some plans for like a playground, and I mean, a watering hole. I mean, it's just it's going to be phenomenal to kind of see what this thing turns into. It's going to be great. If you haven't checked them out, go to their Instagram handle, Real Happy Dogs, and just kind of see what the adventures of Patty Cake and Wilbur have become.
Oh yeah, I love tuning in and seeing what's going on their Instagram, seeing their adventures with their chickens and their turkeys and all kind of stuff on there. That's good.
What about you, man?
Well, a little biased. I really enjoyed the conversation that we got to have with Ben King. He's an athlete and a cyclist that I've followed for a long time, and it was really gracious of him to take time out of a really busy schedule to chat with us. So that was a real treat, and to be able to follow his nature photo account is just incredible. The amount of birds that this guy's able to capture.
I mean, I'm looking around my yard and the places that I frequent, and I see redbirds, robins, maybe a hawk like a mile away. Yep. But Ben's photos, it's like he lives in a zoo. I mean, he has access to all these birds, and it's just amazing. The quality of photo he gets, it's incredible.
Yeah, he does a great job. And it was good to hear, from someone who races, these races that I've watched on TV, to sort of hear what it's like, to be in the mix. But then to also hear, how he still feels like a kid when he rides his bike, and he's having fun too. And that's not just work. So that was a good conversation. Also, man, what was a surprise, for us interview? I mean, I know the answer to that for me. But
yeah, I feel like I don't know. For me, I think it was Hugh, Dr. Cheek. He, his story is so powerful, and his wife Morgan. They have such a support group of followers who have been along their journey with them. it was incredible to see the turnout. That has by far been our most listened to episode.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just fascinating to me that from season 1 to season 2, the most listened to episodes involve the most grief, which is, man, it's interesting to me. I guess it resonates with people. Their stories, I guess they help people navigate their own grief, perhaps. But man, I was so encouraged by his story, but also like him taking time to write. That was one of the things that we had hoped for in this podcast, that you would go and you would write your own stories, and then he writes this beautiful poem, telling his story at the end of that episode. Was, man, what a treat.
And that was special. And I think that he's done some writing since then that
Yeah.
that he shared with us. And it's just, writing, you and I say this all the time, writing is a way for us to reflect and to help make sense of some of the things that happen in our lives and the stories that we tell and how they shape us. We constantly say that. And, I think that's important. And Hugh does it. And it's, I don't know, it's therapeutic.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're hoping to see more of that and hear more of those, more of those stories of people taking time to sit down and write their stories. I mean, that's what those are the things that will last. I mean, as you and I said as we started this thing, I would love it if I could look into, say, a journal and see some stories that my dad had written, about his own life.
Oh,
maybe
man.
some things that I didn't know or hadn't heard, and we cherish those. So trying to develop a culture, a little more of a culture of that, what a treasure it would be to have those things. And so trying to be better myself at sitting down and journaling about experiences, and having this podcast sort of helps us do that, so it gives me a good reason.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great to see how it touches people. When we started this thing, we didn't really know how it was going to be received, but to see it inspire people to do things, get outdoors with their sons. We've heard from a few people how they like to listen to this as they're doing something with their children. And then you have Hugh writing, actually a story about my hat, this hat that I'm wearing.
Oh yeah.
My buddy Roger, his dad was a vice president at Man's Bait Company. He sent me this hat, and he had a letter in the box that had a poem that he had written. He was inspired by this podcast to write a poem about his thoughts and about everything. And so, it's just, we're excited to see that this being well received.
So we've had our own little adventures here lately, Brian.
Man, you want to talk about an adventure? Let's get into this trip.
So
what did we name it?
Yeah. Copperheads, coyotes, and catfish. Yeah. The 3 C's.
3 C's.
And we can throw in, speaking of C's, our good friend Craig Godwin from East Alabama Fly Fishing reached out to us and to set up an opportunity for us to go spend some time with them fishing in East Alabama. And listeners to
my first question
to the podcast.
Yeah, my first question to Craig was like, how much does that cost? He's like, man, we want to take you guys. And it was a gift. It was like, hey,
so
let's put that on the calendar. I mean,
yeah. Quick, book it, quick.
Book it. Well, that was a little bit of a challenge too.
Yeah, we did book it. And then it ended up being what a rainy year it's been here in Alabama. And I know if there's anybody, bless their souls, living somewhere out west that listens to this, we're sorry, but we've gotten a lot of rain.
Yeah.
Here in Mobile, and so it really washed out, and so we had to reschedule, and we were able to pull it off later in the summer. We were hoping to do some camping in the cooler part of the year and then go fishing, but it just didn't work out because it was doing a lot of raining, and so we pushed it to the last weekend of July, and Craig graciously took us on a float down the Tallapoosa River. Interestingly, Brian, the Tallapoosa River, I had no idea. I was looking up. That river is 265 miles long from the southern end of the Appalachian Mountains in Georgia all the way down to Montgomery. I didn't know it went that far. That's incredible.
I had no idea. I mean, honestly, it was, when I hear Tallapoosa, I'm thinking, okay, I really don't know anything about it. I think it's close to Lake Martin.
Yeah, that's it. Everybody references Lake Martin in the state, and that's where most people in that area go.
Yep.
Is Lake Martin, and it's a beautiful area. I mean, we're over in a very rural part of the state, and so Craig found me a place there wasn't really a place for me to camp, and we were meeting early that morning, and it's like 3.5 hours from Mobile where I live. And so I drove up and met them at this property of a good friend of his who let me camp. And I camped out, and it was hot.
In late July.
In late July, in a field next to the Tallapoosa River. It was pretty warm.
So,
big fella here was sweating. Okay.
Other than the warmth, you had a couple of late night visitors.
I had some visitors. Yeah, we were getting all camp all. I was getting camp all set up, getting my fire going, and sitting way away from the fire as you would do in late July in Alabama. But I needed the fire to cook some dinner for myself. So I was sitting there, and I heard a little noise there in the bushes on the edge of the field. And, when you're out all by yourself, every little noise is a critter or something. So I was like, well, I better go investigate. So I cautiously with my flashlight, ease over to investigate. And I noticed two copperhead snakes that are, they're sizable copperhead snakes, and they are, how do I put this delicately? They are answering the call of nature together and doing the thing they were created to do, and that's create,
having relations.
Yes, they were very close to one another, and it was not cool, and it was very close to my camp, and so I aggressively encouraged them to move on with this to somewhere else, some other location for this rendezvous by the river there. So, and they did.
That makes for a good night to kind of nest, snuggle into your tent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. From that point on, every sound I was like, well, there's something else. Here comes something else. And so I had my flashlight handy. And I would snap it up and see, all right, what is it now? But it didn't have anything else. It just a lot of sweat. But
about 4 o'clock that morning, something else came.
Yeah, well, I had a fire, man, and I cooked up a steak there over the fire. It felt very Jethro Gibbs, if there are any NCIS fans of cooking a steak over an open fire. And enjoyed my steak and sat and just enjoyed the quiet. I will say that it's been a long time since I've been that solitary and that far away from anyone. And it wasn't for a little while, even though it was hot, it was incredible just to have quiet. And there was barely any cell phone signal. And so there wasn't very much distraction, and to just be quiet. And so that was, of all the excitement, that was good for my soul, to experience the silence and solitude out there. But I did. I bedded down and tried to get some sleep, and I would wake up and I would look at the fire, make sure it wasn't, making sure it was, under control or whatever. And then I'd go back to sleep and doze off, and did that for several hours. And then around about 4 o'clock, I was sleeping pretty soundly until I heard the very creepy and scary cackle of what seemed like 5 or 6, maybe 10 coyotes that were very close to where I was camping. And man, that if you've never heard that before, out in the woods in the dark, that's a creepy sound. It makes your blood run cold.
Man, I'm telling you, whenever I'm in a tree stand and I hear the coyotes start to key up, I look at my watch. Time to get down.
Well, it's time
to go to the truck.
Yeah. So we were meeting our good friend Craig, our new friend Craig, now good friend, at the Horseshoe Bend National Military Park. There's a boat launch there on the Tallapoosa. So we were meeting there to go to another place.
Yeah. And who knew we had a national park in Alabama?
Right. I mean, I've lived here all my life, and I didn't know this thing was here, man.
I had no idea.
The Horseshoe Bend National Military Park. But anywho, I wasn't going back to sleep. This was around 4 o'clock. There's no way I was going to go back to sleep knowing that they probably wouldn't have messed with me.
Right.
I did have a pistol that would have discouraged engagement. But they probably wouldn't have gotten close enough for that to be necessary. but I wasn't going to go back to sleep.
If only they'd have gotten close enough to take care of those copperheads, that'd have been nice. I mean, it would good symbiotic relationship there.
That would have been great. I would have let them handle that, but they didn't. And so I was like, well, I'm not going back to sleep. So I went ahead and packed her up and made my way down the winding road down to the Horseshoe Bend National Military Park, where there's a boat launch and a nice little area. And so I proceeded to just hang out there and make me some coffee and wait on you guys to arrive. It was it turned out to be a very nice morning, sitting there by the river, listening to the Tallapoosa roll by and drink some coffee.
Yeah. So when I got there, I mean, I got up, I hit the road around 4 a.m., about the time the coyotes were waking you up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I drove the hour and 45 minutes from Birmingham to the river. And man,
and graciously brought me a biscuit.
Yeah, I brought you a biscuit because didn't know what you had for breakfast that morning.
Cliff Bar.
So once we got there, we put in north of the bend, Horseshoe Bend, and Craig, he had us all set up, and we were in a raft boat. I'm not sure the
sweet little drift boat, man.
Drift boat.
It's cool.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's perfect for that kind of river because there's some shoals there and there's some rocks that you're going to have to go over. And, being rubber and kind of inflatable, it's going to be able to maneuver those rocks without breaking something. I mean, you going through there with a hard hull, it would have been difficult.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah.
So that really, what we noticed throughout the day, I mean, this section that we floated, we saw three kayaks, right?
Yeah, I think it was four, as one of them was a little kid. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think later we saw a couple of guys on the shore on the side of the river, throwing something for their dog. That was it. We floated from 6:45 ish, 7 o'clock to 3 in the afternoon.
It's 11-mile stretch.
And that's all that we saw.
Yeah.
And so because of the river and the way that it is, you would have to have a kayak or a boat like what Craig had to access it. But it seems like everybody else was down at Lake Martin in their pontoon boats and their bass boats because no one would access this section of the river. So, man, it felt like we had this beautiful place all to ourselves.
Yeah, and we really, I mean, essentially we did. And, we motored out for a little ways, had to get away from the boat launch. I don't know, it's about 15 minutes we motored.
It had a sweet little outboard motor on his drift boat that kind of that would have taken forever if you'd been like rowing that.
Yeah, that would not have been a good row because it's kind of flat water. It wasn't where the
no current
there. So we get down about 15 minutes away from the boat launch. Now 15 minutes, I'm not sure how far we were traveling on a 2.3 horsepower, outboard, but it was far enough to get away from where we couldn't see anything. We were in the middle of nowhere.
No, it was great. I enjoyed it. Just early morning on a river, and it's so still, and you're just like tootling along. Like, I don't want to go fast, honestly. I enjoyed the speed, and we just looked around and took in all this, this beautiful forest and farmland that's around this river up here in, rural central Alabama. And man, it was incredible. Yeah, it was beautiful.
And egrets were flying. We had osprey flying. We saw some kingfishers, as you and I love. So we get to our first spot, and we really don't know what we're fishing. I mean, Craig was like, okay, throw in this direction. So Brad and I, we threw in that direction. We had a top one. yeah, that's where
this is the first time I've ever fished a river like this, because I've never. I know you spent some time on the Cahaba, which is a similar kind of river, though smaller.
Right.
Than a river like this and similar species. But when it comes to bass fishing down here, I'm not on water like this. So the bass act a little bit different, as we learned throughout the day.
Well, and I'd fished even the Cahaba, and bass fishing in other areas with a fly rod. I'd never experienced anything like this.
No.
This was, if you're looking to go catch bass on a fly rod, this was a dream trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was probably first or second cast where, we're throwing these top water, which if you fly fish, top water is really where the excitement is. You just see the explosion coming out of the water onto this bug.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't take long. I mean, I'm seriously thinking first or second cast of the day,
Yeah.
I hooked into a fish, and I don't know, it's probably 14, 15 inches long, a
Yeah, easy.
bass,
Yeah.
and man, pulled it in. It was great. I mean, oh my goodness, my blood was rushing. Not too long after that, you know, fourth or fifth cast of the day.
Yeah, I looked in there and your rod's doubled over again. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, another one. And then
You lost that one, didn't you? Lose that one? You broke that one. You
I got
broke
the
that one off.
second one. It was the third one that I
You
lost.
broke off. Yeah.
The third one was a big fish. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm fishing a 6 weight rod, and has some pretty hefty line on it. I think he said 12-pound line, but you never know what's going on under the surface, if there's a knot or if there's a rock or something that gets caught on. But I fought this fish for a pretty good while, and it got off. I mean, it broke off. It broke the line. Um,
Pretty big.
Craig,
It's a
Craig,
pretty big fish.
yeah, Craig said it was probably going to be 18, 19 inches. So, I mean, that's a pretty good fish for a fly rod. I don't know what that equates to in poundage, but it was the one that got away for sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah. He was huge. Huge.
huge. It was probably 7 or 8 pounds. The longer we talk about it, the bigger that fish is going to
Yeah,
get.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, man. Honestly, top to bottom, I've fished. I've been fortunate for places, and that was as fun as any place that I've ever fished.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
No question. I mean, Craig did a phenomenal job putting us on the fish, and man, he was a great guide, and it was an incredible experience. So if you're wanting to, honestly, like, I really would love to go fly fishing and catch some bass on a fly. Like, get online, look up East Alabama fly fishing, and
They'll put
hit
you
those
on 'em.
guys up. They'll put you on them, man. It's a great trip, man. So they got some cool things going on. I really like what they're doing.
Well, and another thing, whenever whenever we start, you start some fishing trips, you have a really good success early, and then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it's not 7 o'clock yet.
It's going to slow down.
It's going to slow down.
Yeah.
Brad, we caught fish until
All
3
day.
o'clock that day.
I had the bass thumb, man. My thumb was worn out from holding fish.
I mean, we would fish sections of river, and we would catch 4 or 5 at a time, go down a little bit, four more, 5 more. How many fish do you think we put in the boat? 30, 40?
Easy 30. I mean,
We stopped taking pictures.
We stopped like, well, I'm not going to take another picture. But I think the most, I had never caught the red eye bass that we talk about a lot.
Oh, what a fun fish.
And man, we did one section where the water was really shallow, and there's this huge sections of grass and those beautiful cahaba lilies, and we waded out and spent some time fishing in those shallows. Man, we would connect with these red eye bass that don't get very large because it takes them a really long time to grow. And so, I mean, some of the fish that we caught, Craig was saying, they're like 10-year-old fish.
Yeah, they grow an inch a year. Think about that. I mean, you catch a 10, 12-inch fish. That fish has had a journey.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
wow.
So we caught several of those that were that size that, man, they had stayed in that little area for, over 10 years. And man, they were beautiful. And man, those little things, they hit with a vengeance.
They're angry.
And so it was super exciting. Angry little fish, and they would just absolutely maul the popper that we were using, or the streamer that we were using. They would just maul it. I mean, like air jaws coming out of the water after
Absolutely.
these things.
Even fishing a streamer, they're jumping out of the water as they hit it.
Yeah. It startled you, because you'd just be pulling along, you hadn't hit anything, and then wham, like something would just absolutely destroy whatever you're pulling. So it was so much fun out there, and it was a beautiful day. It was a little hot, but man, we'd get out and wade, and man, it was a great. The water felt great, and man, it was just super exciting. Pulled over, Craig whips out the stove and we cooked some sausage there on the side of the river, and just sat and chatted, and man, it was delicious hot dog, sausage dog, and man, it was a great lunch right there on the riverside.
Man, and it was, you talk about wading and doing all this. You're wading through these shoals, and the rocks are there, and you got the grass. And one point we pulled up on a pretty nice little drop. It was about 4 or 5 foot drop of a waterfall.
Yeah, that would have been. It was exciting. It was probably the most exciting little shoal drop that we experienced, and there was a nice. you could tell it was a pretty deep, pretty deep hole that we're there. And by this time, we'd switched over to the streamers, and we're pulling these streamers through. And I remember I was like, man, this is a beautiful spot. So I'd step back and I'd taken a couple of pictures of you because you were out on this rock outcropping, casting into this deep hole, and we'd already caught a couple of fish right there in that little area, and I was like, I almost stop and take a picture of Bryan rather than taking a picture of another fish. And
That picture you took was amazing.
And man, it turned out awesome. And right after that, I took this picture. I see your rod just double over. I mean, it just bent over into two, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!"
What?
And Craig was like, "That man, that might be a striper," but it didn't run around like a bass will run around.
No,
it just went straight to the bottom. I was like, "Oh my goodness, what kind of river monster is he about to pull out of this thing, man?" Because his rod was under duress.
So when we pulled up, we stopped at the top of this waterfall, and Craig says, "You never know what you're gonna catch here.
Yeah,
who knows?" And so because it was a deep hole, it's muddy water. A lot of food coming through there. There's a lot of fish, a lot of species are going to be eating in this little area. And I was like, well, okay, well, let's give it a shot. I got the streamer. He said, just throw into that muddy part and bring it back through the bubbly water and let it sink to the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, I did that. So I'm fishing this thing, and hadn't gotten a bite. I fished, I don't know, probably threw 50 casts in there. And I let it sink a little bit deeper on the last time I did it. And I hooked in to this catfish that
it was a blue cat, right?
I think it was a blue cat. It was a 6-pound catfish, and I've got a 6-weight rod and this line, and it was as if I was a gnat on that catfish's back because it was going, and all I could do was just hold on, and luckily it was kind of confined to a little area, or it would have run me all the way to Lake Martin. This thing was fighting so hard, and somehow it got wrapped in the line, and so it kind of debilitated itself.
It did the death roll.
It did the death roll, and then what it did was it kind of handcuffed itself, and so I was able to pull it up. Craig was kind of coaching me from behind, and Craig's so soft spoken, I could barely hear him from the roar of the waterfall. I hear him there, let it run. So let it run. I'd pull it in. I was just stripping it with my hand. I didn't want to break the line by reeling it, and so I finally fought it in. He had the big net, and let me tell you, it filled up that net.
Yeah,
that was a big net, and it filled every bit of it up. So we got it out. We held it up like we had caught this monster trout. Brad got a good picture of it.
It was awesome.
But man, that was a lot of. That was a wild ride, man, on a fly rod.
Yeah, that's the copperheads, coyotes, and catfish. Like you just
that's
all kind of stuff on the Tallapoosa River, man. That was incredible.
Oh man, I really thought I'd had a
like a stripe,
personal best bass or a big stripe or something. I mean, I didn't know what I had. You never know, and that's how it is with fishing. I think that's what kind of brings us back every time is until you see that fish.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
What's under that water.
Whatever it is, but man, that would have been a good eating catfish. We could have filleted that thing.
No question.
Had we caught that one the night before, that would have been good for your grill.
That would have been really, really quite delicious. I love a drift boat. There's something about like as we drifted, you have some control, but not a ton of control because you're going the way the river's going. And you never knew. Craig knew because he had spent time on that river, but you and I had never been down it. So
yep.
I just think about like we didn't know what was around that next bend. Here's another. Each bend presented itself as here's another spot to try. Here is these shoals are a little bit different than the others, and we'd step out and we'd cast, and it was like each one was its own little adventure as we'd go. Then we'd get back in and proceed to drift down to the next spot until we'd fish. We'd fish, and we fished hard. We fished all day, and man, it was a great day, and I really, really enjoyed just that drifting. And it's so relaxing.
Oh my goodness! And you just take what you get.
Yeah.
Go where the river goes. We were standing on that waterfall. It came a downpour. I mean, I'd forgotten about that. It was a was a hefty shower. We were right there in the middle of it fishing, and then
Cooled
but
us off for a little bit.
cooled us off. You take you go like you're saying, man, just going where the river leads. There's something therapeutic about that too.
Yeah, it was very restful, and even though we were fishing hard or it was hot, but it was still, just a joyful, relaxing day as you just kind of, you drifted and enjoyed the ride. And man, we had a lot. I had a lot of fun, man. As much fun as I've had.
We needed a positive trip. We'd struck it out on the last few.
we,
um,
yeah, we had.
that was a good redeeming trip, and like we've said before, if you guys are in Alabama and you're looking to catch some bass on a fly rod, call Craig at East Alabama Fly Fishing. They'll put you on them. It's going to be a great day. Craig's good company, and they have other guides within that the fly fishing guide services that they have in East Alabama. But
I think it's relatively new too, right, Brian?
it is. It's new. They're growing. They're doing some neat things. But let me tell you, they've got all the workings of a successful guide service. Great
we're not going to say
hospitality.
exactly where we were. We don't want to give away their spot, but man, there are not a lot of people doing what they are doing, and let me tell you, it's as good a fishing as you'll experience with a fly rod and bass.
Yeah, and it's kind of iffy late July. I can't imagine whenever the bite is on. I mean,
Yeah.
late July is not when you think, oh, let me go catch some fish. That's like, let me go. I'm gonna sit inside the AC for a little bit, but
it did feel a little bit. I mean, that water was perfect, man. It was great.
It was.
And man, what a great experience, man. I just can't believe I've lived in this state for all my life, for 41 years, and I didn't know that there was a national military park. The Horseshoe Bend, which is what that was our takeout down there. We came right by the national park. That was the site of the last battle of the Creek War, and General Andrew Jackson and the Tennessee militia aided in 19. And so it was like 1814. So it commemorates this huge battle that was there. And man, I've heard about the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, but I didn't realize there was a national military park. And I think it says the least visited national park in the country. I thought, well, if no one knows it's there.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've lived in Alabama my whole life, and honestly, when they said Horseshoe Bend, I had to Google it, and so I had to figure out, well, okay, where he's talking about. I know there's a place out west called Horseshoe Bend, but that's not where we're going.
No,
different.
It's definitely a little different, but yeah, it was a beautiful place and a great experience. So man, that was a great event. Definitely a good summer adventure for us, man.
Yep.
So thank you to East Alabama Fly Fishing for an incredible experience, and we hope some of you that listen that are fly fishermen will look them up and go hang out with those guys. And man, you will not be disappointed, I assure you.
Yeah, that's well said.
I'm so excited, Brian, as we look at like the guests that are lining up for season 3. Can you believe it? We're at season 3, man.
Season 3, buddy. We've got a lot.
Working on a lot.
I'm kind of speechless at some of the guests that we have. I mean, they were long shots, and we were able to actually.
Now, we'll say this before we get too far into that. We did say we have a lot going on, and so everyone has a lot on their plate and a lot of things happening, and we were thankful to take some time to do some fishing, and we've been working on season 3 as we're getting towards that, but. It's been an eventful summer for you, Brian. You released a book this summer, man.
Man, yes. It was a long time coming. This book was this is my first novel that I've published, and man, I was so excited to get that out into the world. So it's been a fun summer. We've launched it on at the 1st of July, so it's about a month old. And man, it's called The Devils in Alabama. If you're looking at the YouTube video, this is the book cover, but it's called The Devils
in Alabama.
The Devils in Alabama. And it's a story about It has a little bit of everything. It kind of follows the path of this young guy who works at a newspaper, who has been um, he's about to quit his job because he's in debt and needs some money to pay off a debt that he
Mm.
owes. But he also is he kind of has a gambling habit. The gambling habit is a way that he is able to fund his father's opioid addiction.
Mm.
So he's got some family crisis there. As the newspaper intern, he is assigned to investigate the rise of sports gambling halls, and that's the world that he is very familiar with his gambling habit. And so
Mm.
that getting into this world, this thirst for money, takes him deeper and deeper into a world of the sinister underbelly of Alabama, and
Mm.
he finds that the gambling is connected to sports and is connected to drugs and is connected to politics, and he goes on this journey not only to help uncover some of these things, but maybe find him a little bit of himself along the way. So
That's great, man.
yeah, so we did a cool thing last couple of days. We asked some of our listeners and followers to give us some questions about the book. You mind if
Mm.
we kind of go through some of
Oh,
those?
listen, I love to hear him. I love to
Okay,
hear him.
we won't take long. We've only got time for four. So John says, "What inspired you to write this book?" I get that one a lot. That's kind of the standard question that a lot of authors get. Honestly, this book was a project I started in 2017. I just come out of my doctoral work. And after I graduated, I had all of this creative energy and creative juices that were flowing because,
Mm.
when you're in a doctoral program, you don't have a lot of room for creativity. And so it's just very technical. And so I wrote the first draft of this novel from May to October of 2017.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so from that, it was a story that I just kind of was thinking, all of the what ifs. What if sports and gambling and drugs and politics and religion, what if all these were connected somehow?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what would that look like? What would a story look like about that? And, so that's kind of how it started. And don't want to give away too much of the book, but it went through a lot of editing, a lot of
Couple of revisions and
Uh,
editing.
I would not be exaggerating if I said about a dozen revisions, and so the first draft is definitely not the last draft, which
Yeah.
that's part of it. Melanie said, "How much of this is true?" So the thing about writing fiction is that you love that question because it makes people think that it is true. You kind of want to fall in this world of plausibility. And so as a writer, I want people to think, could this really happen, or is this really true? Well, the truth is that this is all fiction. I mean, there's elements that may be similar to the truth. There are places that may seem familiar, but all of it's made up. There are not brick and mortar sports betting places in Alabama, but there are in this book. But could they?
There might be soon. I'm just
Could they? That's kind of the whole point of doing the sports betting angle is there's a big vote in November of 2022 that's going to see whether or not sports gambling can be legalized in the state. And so
kidding.
that's it's something that could be, but at this point in time, they don't
Brian's just
exist.
revealing a little bit of his dark secrets. I'm just kidding.
That's right. This is a journal.
It's a journal.
Diane says, "How much research did you have to do for this book?" Kind of go along with that previous question. You have to do a lot of research to know what is true and what's not true on the front end of it. And so being able to go in,
Hmm.
I did a lot of research. I mean, there's a lot of Googling, a lot of fact finding. Okay, what is this? Did this really happen? Is this something that I can write about? I don't want to write about something that is true and face litigation and people that actually exist. So you have to do enough research to know, okay, this did not exist or this is not true, so you can navigate those waters. So yeah, a lot. That's kind of a vague answer, but you can't just go in and write a lot of things, especially in this genre of suspense that you you don't know whether or not it's true. So you kind of have to know what is out there and what isn't, so that you can make a compelling story. Um, Caroline asked, "Does Birmingham College play at Legion Field?" So there's a sports aspect where, living in Alabama, you if you write about Auburn and you write about Alabama and you put one of them in a bad light, then you've alienated half of your audience. And so I created these two schools. One is the University of Montgomery, and the other one is Birmingham College. And so I twisted and turned as so much that I don't. If you recognize that one of them is Auburn and one of them is Alabama, that's news to me, because that's something that I was really intentional about, trying to make these two unique schools that were rivals in the state. But
Yeah.
so there's a scene that I
Just say it, Paul. You love University of Montgomery.
Birmingham College ain't played nobody, Paul.
Oh man, Paul
So-
Feinbaum does he make a cameo in your
A
book? there, Brian?
cameo? No, I wish I could have had a character like Paul, but he's so unique. That would have been a dead ringer there. So there's Birmingham College. They're at this football stadium, and honestly, what I did, Caroline, was I took a little bit of every college atmosphere that I've been to and tried to make it one school. It wasn't Legion Field. It wasn't Auburn Stadium. It wasn't Samford University Stadium. It wasn't Bryant-Denny Stadium. It was all of them combined into this atmosphere that I think people could relate to and think, oh, that could be this stadium, or that could be this stadium. So yeah, it wasn't particularly Legion Field, but it also wasn't any in particular at all. It was a lot of the combination. So I kind of wanted that to be a fun little place that people could recognize, but may not know exactly where it is.
All right.
But yeah, thanks for the questions. That's kind of fun. I like talking to my readers. We've gotten some really good feedback. It's available on Amazon if you'd like to purchase it. It's on Kindle and paperback on Amazon. The Devil's in Alabama. Thanks for your support on that. And Brad, thanks for giving me a little time to talk about it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I'm proud of you, buddy. Good
Thanks,
job.
buddy. So let's talk about season 3.
Yeah, man, coming up quicker than probably we want it to.
I feel a little unprepared right now.
A little slightly. There are several guests that, man, we're like you said, man. We gave a few away the last time, but man, I want to keep this one sort of under wraps. But man, we're super excited for one in particular that just super surprised us that he would take time, and because he definitely has a lot going on, and that he would meet with us, man. Some other folks that again, it's these untold stories that we love. These people that maybe you're not familiar with, that we want to sort of expose you to some work that they're doing.
Yep.
And then some stories, our own stories, as we write and work to prepare those stories as we look forward to season 3. We're fired up about it.
Yeah, and we're at this point where we're digging deep into the reservoir of our personal stories to write these essays, and it's helped me and has forced me to reflect more on maybe the events that weren't so big in my life. And
that's true. Yeah.
And it's like, I think that it doesn't have to be a life-changing event to be significant.
Right.
And so, yeah, we've talked a lot about big events in our essays, and but this season we're going to be looking at things that may not have been the life-changing events that we had in the past, but man, I think that they're going to be just as rich. I've kind of got some ideas, and I've heard from you about some of the things that you're looking at doing, and I'm really excited about that. And we also have something coming up in October that's going to be kind of fun.
Yeah, we're going to try out a huge group of guys are going, of our friends, some former guests. They're going to join us, and a bunch of fishy dudes, as we say, are going to travel up to North Georgia to spend some time with some guys on the Tallapoosa River and try to catch us some North Georgia trout, man.
Well, you know what happened last time we were on that river? It was the birthplace of the Storied Outdoors.
That's right.
So there's no telling what's going to come out of this trip.
no telling, no telling. We're excited about the guys that are going. I'm excited. Hugh's going to go.
Yeah.
Going to go with us. A good buddy of mine named Chase Bowers, who's a pastor and good friend that lives out in Temple, Texas, is joining us, and several other cast of characters that all love fly fishing and are good friends of ours. And man, we're really looking forward to it.
There's some pretty good fly fishermen on this trip.
Man.
I hope there's enough fish in the Toccoa to handle it.
You ain't gonna know what hit him.
Ben's coming. He could catch a fly. He could catch a trout out of a mud puddle. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be a fantastic trip.
Yeah, it's going to be. Hopefully, Craig that Godwin that took us on the Tallapoosa is going to make it up for some of that trip.
Yeah, I hope so. He's still got to do some scheduling, but we're hoping to see him again, and maybe you guys can get to hear from him. We're going to do some.
And what a gifted photographer, by the way.
Oh my goodness, we didn't even talk about that. Craig Godwin Photography. Go to his website. I mean,
you want to put that in the show notes, man. What a gifted dude, man.
Oh my goodness, he's got some of the most beautiful outdoor photography of covey rise and bird dogs and a fisherman, and I mean just outdoor photography, but also does portrait photography.
Yeah,
unbelievable at what he does.
He does a lot of like product photography for boutiques and stuff like that too. I think he was sharing with us.
Yeah, a lot of commercial stuff. Yeah,
he's got a very wide portfolio of things that he's good at capturing with his camera, man. Yeah, hopefully he shares some of the pictures that he took. Really talented.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having that whole crew there, and we're going to do some on location recording. So we'll probably be by a fireplace.
It'll be the first. We're going to set up all the mics that we got and just see what comes out. Who knows what comes out? Because not only are they all a bunch of fishermen, but they're definitely a cast of characters, and so there should be some content and some fishing fodder, and the fish will get bigger the longer those, as you said, the longer we talk about it, those fish they'll be ginormous by the time that conversation's over with.
Good conversation and a bunch of lies and probably good food too. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that experience with those fellas.
Well, Brad, this has been a fun conversation. Yeah. I know our listeners, we've taken them a little bit longer than we normally do, but we had a lot to cover.
That's just part of it. I mean, there's some of these podcasts that I get enveloped in, and before I know it, an hour's gone by, and so that's part of catching up. And we haven't done anything in a little while, and so it's for us to catch up and debrief a little bit from our own trip. You can't cram that into 20 minutes, man.
No. That's we would be doing the trip an injustice if we were to try to shorten it.
But lots to cover, and I'm glad we did. And looking forward to season 3.
Yeah, we haven't got a the start date on it, but when you're listening to this, you wouldn't matter.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. So we hope you guys enjoy season 3. It's going to be fun, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, so many people. Have been a few more people. We made a plea on Instagram we'd love to get some more. The way you drive popularity or grow a podcast like this is through ratings and reviews. We don't really know why that's the case, but that is the case, and that's how you grow these things. So if we have some very faithful listeners, and being able to see the numbers. I tell people when I'm looking for, or I'm asking folks to come join us, on the podcast that maybe considered a big deal, so to speak. I just tell them, I'm like, listen, we're not a big deal. We're not this big time popular podcast. We have about 300 very faithful listeners that care about these stories and would love to hear from you. And so for those 300 that are faithful, to download and listen each week, man, we would love for you to take time to leave a review. The written review and rating is the gold for a podcast. So as we continue to try to grow this thing, take some time on whatever your podcast platform is, to leave us a rating and a review to help us grow this podcast and encourage folks, because there are some encouraging stories that we have heard that we want to eventually share. Some of them are very personal. One in particular, was very interesting and sort of traumatic for the guy, but because of what he had been listening to on here, and it was really used to help him. So I can't wait for him to tell that story. And so I don't want to spoil that, but man, not to be overly spiritual, but it seems like the Lord has used these conversations to do exactly what we tell people. We hope these stories encourage you. We hope these stories challenge you and inspire you to write your own stories, which we've seen Hugh do and other folks do, to write their own stories and own poetry and share your own adventures in the Storied Outdoors.